Unspoken Issues.
Hey everybody, do not forget, after listening to this episode, make sure to check out our spectacular interview with Greg Wright, the colorist of Spider-Man number 14, and also writer and colorist of our other Facebook poll option, Morbius number 12. That interview is on the airwaves right now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another installment of Unspoken Issues, the Unspoken Decades podcast, where myself, Jesse Starcher, and Chris Armstrong take a look at a specific issue voted on by the fans of the Unspoken Decade Facebook page. So this week, we put up a poll. Our friends came together in short notice, by the way, and gave us a topic that we're going to be talking about. They chose the issue that we are going to be discussing tonight. Now, this one, again, was slapped together there pretty quickly because we wanted something to record, pretty much. I mean, we hadn't had a chance to put anything out for, what are we going on, a couple weeks here at least. I know we have one in the can that will be coming to you the week of the 22nd, which will probably air before this one does. Regardless, we needed something else to record so we can have something else ready right after that. The two contestants, the two titles that we're going to be battling each other. Chris, why don't you let our friends here know the issues that you chose and why?
For a couple of days there, though, the comic book movie world was abuzz with the Morbius trailer. I mean, I knew that they were making a Morbius movie. I knew Jared Leto had been cast. Last week, an image popped up of, Leto as Morbius. Mm-hmm. And then, without much warning, at least not, I mean, maybe a lot of people had heard about it, that it was going to be dropping, but it was kind of a surprise to me that they had just gone ahead and dropped a trailer a few days after those images came out. It looks pretty cool. So I thought, there was a lot of Morbius activity in the early 90s especially. So
yeah,
got a couple of Morbius-centric issues. And one, of course, was the Todd McFarlane bringing Spider-Man back to the black suit was kind of a big deal in issues 13 and 14 of his adjectiveless Spider-Man comic. And then Morbius, of course, had his own title for a while after the Rise of the Midnight Suns event that kind of gave Marvel a line of horror/action adventure comics. Morbius is one of those. He had a series that ran probably into the 20s, I think. So I picked an issue of one of those Midnight Suns crossovers as the other option. And not surprisingly, Farland won out.
Total of 62 votes here. Total of 62 votes. So Morbius number 12 clocks in at 29 votes, while Spider-Man number 14 comes in at 33. So tonight we're talking about Spider-Man number 14, which is the second part of a story called Sub-City. Yeah, you look at the front cover here. We have clearly Morbius on the side, blood dripping from his mouth. Spider-Man in his black costume. Well, hey, if anybody's tuning in who doesn't know who Morbius is, do you think you could give an idea as to who this character is?
I can give an idea. Mostly this is based on the animated series.
Hey, that sounds... because, I think that's pretty close.
And I have read a lot of Morbius appearances and stuff, but as far as I'm aware, he was a scientist who developed a synthetic blood serum.
Okay.
And maybe it poisoned him. And maybe he was testing it on himself. See, again, my ignorance is showing there. I don't really remember exactly how it was some kind of science gone wrong thing. He's not like a supernatural vampire. Is the point, I guess.
He wasn't bitten and turned.
Right. Okay. He did. I believe he did it to himself.
Okay.
And he hasn't been able to cure his vampirism since then.
Yeah, it says, while in New York, after escaping from his country due to his vampiric condition. Now, he says vampiric condition because it says he was raised in Greece by a single mother. Michael Morbius experienced an isolated childhood due to his rare blood condition, which contributed to his ugly and unpleasant-looking appearance. But despite his looks, he was an intellectually gifted young man who spent his time reading books and in time became a highly respected and Nobel Prize-winning biologist who specialized in the field of human and animal biology. While in New York, after escaping from his home country due to his vampiric condition, he attempted to find a cure and to protect his fiancée, Martine Bancroft. But he was attacked by the Lizard and defeated when Spider-Man and the Lizard fought against him to recover a sample, making sure I'm reading that right, recover a sample of Morbius's blood in order to cure their own mutated physical conditions before he disappeared. All right, so Yeah, it
So it
says
sounds like I was way off, and he was born with this.
well, he had it, but it says the truth behind his horrific condition is that in order to cure his decaying blood condition, Morbius, using his past experience as an expert biochemist, had attempted to cure himself of his blood disease with an experimental treatment involving vampire bat DNA and electroshock therapy. However, he instead became afflicted with a far worse condition, pseudo-vampirism, that mimicked the powers of bloodthirst of legendary vampirism. So, yeah, you take a look at Morbius. I mean, he looks like a vampire. They call him the living vampire. In this book, at least, you don't see Morbius going out in the day. So he's mostly underground. There is your idea of who Morbius is. He is called the living vampire. He did not become a vampire out of, just like Chris said, out of supernatural means. This is something that was created by science. He's forever been trying to find a cure for the longest time, I think, for this. And that's mentioned in the book as well. So, all right, Spider-Man number 14, published by Marvel, hits the shelves July 16th of 1991. This is the second to last Todd McFarlane issue. Creative team, writer and artist, Todd McFarlane. Then we have letterer Rick L. Parker. And colorist, I guess we need to give a shout out to Gregory A. Wright, who follows the Unspoken Decade Facebook page. There's your creative team going into this. Now, had you read this before we actually covered it tonight?
Yes. I got into comics in 90, and one of my earliest Spider-Man comics was the Spider-Man issues with Wolverine that McFarlane did. He did, I think, a 5-part storyline where him and Wolverine were in Canada, and the Wendigo was the bad guy, or the supposed bad guy who they were looking for.
Perceptions, I think, is the name of that.
That sounds right.
That story.
And I loved those books, so I continued on. I think Sub-City was the storyline directly after that, maybe. So yeah, I had the famous, black suit Spider-Man cover that McFarlane, mimicked his Spider-Man #1 cover, just put him in the black suit.
Yeah, this is issue 13.
Right. And then this is the second part of that storyline. So yeah, I was reading the McFarlane Spider-Man from about issue probably 8 or 9 on.
I own quite a few of these. No, I own this issue, but again, I've never just had the time to sit down and read it until recently.
Something that I picked up on, that I don't know if I've ever really thought about it before, but when I was reading these issues and kind of thinking back to some of those other McFarlane, because I didn't start reading McFarlane Spider-Man from the beginning, but later on I would go back and read Torment, and I think there was a 2-parter with Ghost Rider and Hobgoblin that came after that. McFarlane's Amazing Spider-Man, I think, was probably more of a traditional Spider-Man adventure comic. I've only read a few of those. I haven't read it like that entire run, but his own Spider-Man book where he kind of got to do whatever he wanted, which is this one, it was really like Spider-Man in a horror comic. The first storyline, Torment, was the Lizard and Calypso, I think, were the villains. That is right. And there was a lot of, I don't remember the plot, but I know there was a lot of horrific images, like the image of Kraven with his head blown halfway off.
Yeah.
Then there was the Ghost Rider, Hobgoblin stuff, and then the Wolverine Wendigo storyline was super dark. I think it was about murdered children. It was really heavy stuff. And this one, with the vampirism and the underground stuff, is really a lot of horror elements in all of this McFarlane run.
It's a very good point. The Torment, definitely, since I just got done reading that is very fresh in my mind. And yeah, the Lizard is a killing machine in that. A lot of blood. Everything is going great for Spider-Man, and then all of a sudden things aren't going so great when he runs into the Lizard. And there's a hellacious battle where he honestly, at the end of that story, barely gets out of that with his life.
Yeah.
He is beaten bloody, and then what's even crazier about that is that there's this question. It's called Torment because Spider-Man is kind of tormented as to why he's being attacked. He has no idea why. Calypso has this problem with him, and she doesn't really even tell him. Yeah. She doesn't even say anything, and that's kind of scary in itself. You got somebody who's just trying to kill you, and you have no idea why.
Right.
And she's using the Lizard to do this. So, yeah, that's a very good point. A lot of horror elements to that. And this is very similar. We have, going into this second story, and unless you got anything else, I'll kind of do my 10-cent synopsis here. Going into this story, there have been some homeless people that have been coming up missing.
Mm-hmm.
So Spider-Man has decided to don his black costume, much to the chagrin of Mary Jane. She apparently did not want him. I did, by the way, peruse the issue prior to this just to kind of...
Yeah, I read them both today as well, just because it's been so long since I've read these.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to see about, at the time where he put his costume on, I wanted to see what made him come to that decision. So I think the reason why he decided to do the black costume, which was, number one, it was awesome to see him in the black costume again. And I don't think he's in it after this, and he just puts it on for this one mission.
Yeah, I don't think you see him with it again until maybe Straczynski's run, Back in Black, which came out in the late aughts.
Yeah.
2008 or 2009. Mm-hmm. Maybe 2000. I think it was more like 2007. But I'm not sure, but I mean, there may have been there were what if issues and stuff like that, but I don't recall him actually wearing the black costume again until that point.
He's using this because the dark colors will kind of give him the advantage, because he's tracked the homeless that are being abducted. They've been abducted down to underneath the city. So hence the title of our story, Sub-City. And they're being abducted by these, they're inept people. Yeah. I mean, really, they're not. I mean,
they make a point in the previous issue 13, the former leader of this group points out that they're the product of generations of inbreeding.
Oh, really?
So that's why they look and the way they do. They're grotesque.
Wow. Yeah, that's
and they're obviously not the brightest. They just kind of repeat the same things over and over.
All right, well that makes sense. They don't mention that again. I mean, obviously you can get the point that they're not exactly the most intelligent people,
right?
But yeah. So anyway, we open this comic book up, and Spider-Man's pretty much fighting against all these people that are coming after him. They have been tasked with, or he's basically deduced that these were mostly responsible for abducting the homeless that have been come up missing. But before I get into that, the very first page, all right, the very first page, it has Sub-City. Mm-hmm. We have the skyline, and I'm going to obviously assume that is the trade centers right there, two identical looking buildings side by side. Okay, the text, immediately I was like, dude, this is Spawn. Because if you've read Spawn before, you know that sometimes McFarlane will just write big blocks of text right there, either on the side or up in the corner. I was like, at first page, I was like, holy crap, this feels like a Spawn issue. And even down at the bottom, when you look at, Morbius, all you see is his eyes and his nose.
These two issues, you could almost say these are like the Spawn training wheels. There's so much stuff in the early Spawn issues. I mean, he only did, 15 issues of Spawn, and then he, as far as being the artist, he went straight from this pretty much to Spawn, and there was a lot of stuff with the homeless people in New York and stuff who Spawn interacted with. So
that's true.
A lot of the stuff from those early Spawn issues harken back to the stuff we're seeing, the kind of imagery we're seeing in these issues. So Spider-Man is trying to stay alive, and he's asking these poor looking people. He's asking them, who is your leader? Who's your leader? I need to know who has put you guys up to this, because obviously they're not smart enough. He doesn't believe they're smart enough to actually go about doing what they're doing. So here we're going to stop, because there's something that Spider-Man says that sent me on a rabbit hole. All right. He says, let's see, here we go. Attention troops, a free Wayne Gretzky rookie card to the first one of you to string 5 words together in a sentence. So I head to oldsportscards.com, Chris Armstrong. Now, did you ever collect baseball cards? I mean, I don't know if we've ever got on that tangent or not. I can't remember. I collected basketball cards. That's the only.
Okay. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I never my brothers collected baseball cards. When I was really young. Essentially, I never would have probably gotten into basketball cards, but there was that period of time where I wasn't reading comics, and that's when I got really into basketball. And my brothers were collecting basketball cards, so I jumped in on that with them. So for a few years there in the mid-'90s, I collected basketball cards.
As far as trading cards go, did you ever pick up some hockey cards?
No.
Well, okay. So anybody that probably collected comics at a store in the 90s knew that...
You would see them, yeah.
Yeah, you would have... That store probably dabbled in the card market as well. They were either going to sell baseball cards or basketball, hockey, football, whatever. I've got a full set of Pro Set football cards down here in the basement somewhere. I know I do.
I think most comic shops in the mid 90s, most comic shops started out as like card shops, and then comics became really big. So they were like, well, let's start doing comics as well. And so for a long time, that's how almost every comic shop I would go into was. It was both. It was a comics and cards, basically.
Mm-hmm. Lonzo's Sports Cards and Comics. That was where I went in and gave my pool list. Just about every month I went in there. So anyway, I hop on oldsportscards.com, and I wanted to find out, well, how much is a Wayne Gretzky rookie card worth? Now, I know who Wayne Gretzky is. Do you know who Wayne Gretzky is?
I'm aware of the great one, yes.
There you go. Wayne
Never watched a hockey game, but I know who he is.
I'm same way.
Pro Stars taught me who Wayne Gretzky was.
Have you seen the Mighty Ducks? Have you seen Miracle? I wanted to see, just kind of get an idea, what is it worth? So here's what I learned. This is a neat little bit of trivia. In 1979, there were 2 mainstream Wayne Gretzky rookie cards, one of which was an OPC card. Okay, now I've heard of OPC, but I can't say that I've ever seen one.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
The other brand that I know you've heard of is Topps.
Sure.
Topps had a card, and if you look at the 2 cards, they almost look identical, like same picture.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the same picture, same border, same everything. If you looked at it on the front, I don't think you'd be able to tell. On the back of the OPC card, the language is in both English, and then shortly after that, it's in French.
So this is a Canadian card, I'm sure.
Yes. And down in the middle, I think it says copyright OPC. It has the year. The Gretzky rookie card for Topps, the only thing different, you look at the back and that copyright changes and there's no French language. There's your difference. It says copyright Topps, and then it has just the English language.
But there's a dollar figure difference as well.
Would you like to know what the dollar figure difference is? Because I have it right here.
I'm going to bet that the Topps version is probably, I mean, I don't even know to begin. I have no idea what the state of the prices would be. I would guess the Topps version is probably like a $30 or $40 card, and the other one is probably in the hundreds.
Okay. All right. So I don't have just the regular card value in front of me. What I have is a PSA 10 condition card. So that's probably your CGC 10s, which is very rare to find, number one. Especially for a card, I'm sure, from 1979. You're not going to find a 10 very often. These cards went to auction in 2016, I think. So we'll do the Topps one first, because they said that the Topps one is actually more common. Topps was a pretty big company. Mm-hmm. So a Topps Gretzky rookie graded in PSA 10 condition sold for nearly $210,000.
Whoa.
In 2016. All right.
Uh-huh.
That's about half as much as the OPG one, which sold for
nuts.
$465,000 in 2016.
Did Todd McFarlane buy it?
Now that would not surprise me. That would not surprise me at all.
That's crazy.
I know he's a big baseball fan. I don't know about, but I could see him jumping into the cards.
Another aside on cards, I've got the bookstore here, and about maybe a year and a half ago, a guy came in here and he had like this little metal case with him, not quite the size of a suitcase, a little smaller than that. Yep. And he was like, "Hey, you guys deal in sports cards at all?" And I was like, "Nah, not really." I told him that there were no card shops in Paducah in our town anymore. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Well, I've got some World War I era baseball cards."
Whoa.
Holy crap, what? And I was like, I don't really have any idea what they'd even be worth, but I've got 2 cousins who deal in sports cards that live a couple towns over. And so I hooked him up with I got one of their numbers to him, and I'm assuming they made a deal. The other cousin pretty annoyed whenever he found out that I'd hooked him up.
Oh, you hooked him?
Yeah. But I was like, hey, I tried both of you, and he got back to me first. So.
Did you get a chance to even
see
what they look like?
I mean, I've only seen the one that was mad about it since then. So I haven't had a chance to ask the other guy how that worked out, but I'll I'll need to find out that.
I do. I want to see what they look like, dude. I mean, the thing is back then, in the 90s, I educated myself about cards because I started to get into them and I started collecting them. And I know that, I know at one point, and this is probably in the 1800s though, that they were putting cards in tobacco, right?
Right.
Okay. And then they were, I don't know. I don't even know what they look like. They look like they were thin, like thinner versions of what we got now. I don't even know what they would look like I imagine they probably evolved a little bit there to World War I.
For some reason, it seems like the ones I've seen that are like that old, they were taller.
Taller? Were they thinner?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't see the ones this guy had.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like what you've seen.
The ones I've seen images of, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think cards were around for very long before that either.
Probably not.
I mean, World War I era, we're talking 1910s, close to the 1920s, maybe at the most. And 1886, Goodwin Tobacco created what has become known as the first official baseball card set, the N167 set. Anyway, yeah, so 1886, so I guess it was 1910s. We're talking about 30 years of cards at that time. Man, oh man, that is crazy. Okay, back to the book. All sports card. So anyway, Spider-Man's fighting for his life. He's going to give somebody a Wayne Gretzky rookie card. Somebody could tell him what's going on, who's behind all this. And, well, finally he unleashes a bunch of webs and gets everybody bound up so they can stop the ruckus, basically. Stop the fighting. He wants to know, take me to your leader. And it's really interesting how he wraps like four of them up. He puts, I think he puts one on each arm, one on each one of his arms. I don't know if he has two on his legs.
Yeah, he has one on each arm, one on each leg, just wrapped up in these like web cocoons.
He's just walking them down the cave, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so he's trying to figure out who's leading him, which, like you said, there was a leader prior to this, but Morbius had stepped in. Mm-hmm. Morbius is behind all this, and he's having this group of people go and find him basically food and sustenance. Morbius has given up on trying to find a cure. Last time he saw him, I think, was with Doctor Strange. Spider-Man saw him with Doctor Strange, and he was trying to find a cure, and he's just finally like, I can't do this anymore. So he's put these people up to going and getting the bad people off the street so that Morbius can feed off of them. Now, I want you guys to know that Morbius, he's not completely turned evil. According to what Morbius is saying here, is that he gets these people in, he feeds off of them, but he's not like, from what I understand, he's not like killing them.
See, that's a good point, but like we never, they imply that he's not killing them, but we never see them.
No, we don't. And it's
Spider-Man doesn't rescue them. Like there's no indication of what happened to them.
That is my final note on this was like, he was all about trying to find them. And then after the scuffle with Morbius, when he explains what he's doing there, we see Spider-Man up on the street. There's no mention of like if he found the people, if he rescued them at all. I thought maybe I missed something. Maybe the person that took back over after the big scrap, their previous leader would come in and say, hey, we'll release everybody that's captured. They don't even say that.
Yeah.
It's not even mentioned. Yeah. As Morbius is talking to Spider-Man and between potentially trying to attack him, because Morbius at first doesn't recognize him because of the black costume. They talk things out a little bit, and Morbius says, hey, I'm the one that's leading them. They're supposed to go up and they're supposed to get the bad people, bring them down to me. I'm going to feed off of them. These are the bad people. These are the scum of society. And Spider-Man's like, look, man, I don't know what these people were telling you, but that's not what's happening. So he's trying to talk some sense into Morbius and trying to tell Morbius, take a different route here. You don't have to do this. Morbius is not listening. And then finally something makes Morbius go, I think it's Spider-Man. He's like, the people that are coming down here that are getting abducted from up above are not bad. And Morbius is like, look, I'll prove it to you. And he grabs this guy, brings him over, and he says, hey, you're bringing me down the bad people, right? Now, remember, these people are not really intelligent. They're just being told to do something, and they're doing it for whoever they believe is the leader. This guy ends up telling him, like, yeah, we're going up and we're getting the bad people. And he says, Morbius asks them, why are they bad? And the only thing that they say is they live in Bad City. What else makes them bad? That's it. What about murderers? They're bad. What about crooks? They bad. what about children and old ladies and puppies? Which is funny. Asking him that. What about children and old ladies and puppies? They bad. No, you don't understand. What makes them bad? They not good. So now Morbius starts to realize that there has been a little bit of miscommunication here. Mm-hmm. These people are just going up and grabbing people out of the city because they live in the bad city. At least that's what I think. We find out a little while later from their previous leader that they really don't even understand what the heck a puppy is. Like, they've been down underneath the city for so long, outside of society, outside of societal norms. They don't know what the difference between good and bad is like we do. Morbius is mortified. He's mortified. And he just takes off. He's screaming. He can't believe what he's done now. What he thought he was doing is he's been feeding off of people that were just, they certainly weren't the scum and villainy that I think he believed was happening.
Right. It was mostly just the homeless people in the direct area where this guy would come up to the city.
Their previous leader, the leader shows back up, and we have this, what I would say, special guest appearance from an unmakeup Violator when they do the.
Yeah, that's, yes.
Yes. There's like a 6
and
panel.
That's the main guy. That's the main one who we've seen kidnapping people, I believe.
It says good old Keever. He was only trying his best. Okay, so his name was Keever, but he looks exactly like the Violator. So the previous leader takes over this band of people that live in the sub-city. I mean, oh my goodness. Their features are exaggerated.
Yeah, these are some grotesque caricatures.
My goodness. And so that's it. Spider-Man's out. Spider-Man lets them take over. And the previous leader's like, hey, if we need to turn ourselves in, we will. But you should probably go and help Morbius instead. So Spider-Man agrees. And next thing you know, he's heading back up top, and he's just swinging his web. Just like we said, we have no idea. There was not
much of a conclusion as far as the reason he went down there.
Yeah, so that's it. I mean, that's our issue in a nutshell. So, I mean, what'd you think, man?
I like this story. I should say I like these comics. The story itself leaves a little bit to be desired. I don't think we see Morbius again until the Midnight Suns crossover, which was about a year later. I won't swear to that, but that's my recollection. So I don't think Spider-Man catches up to him anytime soon. McFarlane, he was pretty much the hottest artist on the planet for a couple of years here around the time he was doing Spider-Man and Spawn. It's easy to see why.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how great his art is for, sequential storytelling, but the ugliness is really appealing.
Sure.
The way he draws Spider-Man in all these awkward poses. The image of Spider-Man with the 4 cocooned sub bums or whatever, all wrapped up is just that's probably my panel of the issue.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I really love McFarlane's art, and I don't know, it's not necessarily pretty to look at it. He's got an ugliness to his style but I find it really appealing anyway. But again, the story doesn't really resolve itself. It just seemed like an excuse for McFarlane to put Spider-Man back in the black costume and have him fight Morbius. So I like it, but it's not it's not one of the great comics of the 90s, but I do enjoy this, and it made me want to go back and read some of the other McFarlane Spider-Man stuff, the what I would refer to now as the horror Spider-Man comic, because I'm into that stuff.
He's not exactly the best writer when it comes to he's clearly a tremendous artist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is no doubt about that, but writing is not his strong suit. Now, when you look at the letter column, it's not the letter column, it's the text sheet at the back of Spider-Man #1. Todd McFarlane lays it all out there. He's like, look, I know I'm not a good writer. He knows going into this, he's not a good writer. But what he's trying to do, and this is, I think, his first writing job. I mean, I don't think he's got anything that he's wrote prior to being given the title Spider-Man. I thought, well, initially, maybe he's got to have, maybe there's an indie book, or maybe he did some stuff at DC. I don't think he did. I think this is his. So he's only a year, because this hits shelves, what'd we say, July of 1991? Mm-hmm. Spider-Man #1 hit August of 1990. So this is less than a year of trying to get his writing chops down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I love the look of this book. If you're a fan of 1990s comics, you're going to recognize names such as Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane. It's just a given that this was something that was going to be something that you enjoyed looking at while maybe getting a somewhat okay, fun story in between.
Yeah. Maybe a bigger bonus.
Yeah. I mean, I for one, we're number one, I was kind of handicapped going into this because it was part 2 of a 2-part story, but I still had a good time. Morbius looks freaking frightening. These people that are in the sub-city are just grotesque looking. They are, and Spider-Man, now granted, he's not having the fight of his life like we saw in Torment, but he's fighting nonetheless. And his run-in with Morbius, just like you said, it feels like Spider-Man in the black suit, which was cool to see. Morbius, who was, cool to see. As far as like big plots go, Sub-City's not like something that just rock Spider-Man to the core. It didn't seem like there was any big, what's the big revelation we got out of Sub-City? Morbius made a mistake and he feels really bad and he's gone. He runs off for it. That's about all I get, at least out of part 2. I can't remember if there's anything big that happens in part 1 other than him
not really
putting on the black suit, just like you said.
McFarlane blew up basically on Amazing Spider-Man, and I've heard before, but I don't remember the details. I think he wanted his own book.
Yes.
And
yeah, he goes into that.
Just like, yeah, you can do what you want because we know it's going to sell. Yeah, and that's what his Spider-Man book is. It's just a showcase for his art, basically.
Even in that letters page, he said, "Let me know what I do bad." He wanted people to let him know what they didn't like and what they did like, because it's not like McFarlane went into this saying, "Hey, I'm the greatest writer ever." He knew his foundation was art. So now you mentioned sequential storytelling. I didn't have a problem following what was going on in the book, so I guess that matters. I would assume. So, it's McFarlane, this is his, like we said, second to last issue. So shortly after this, he's going to be giving us the all landscape issue of, it was landscape, right? It was all sideways.
Right.
Yeah. Issue 16. But yeah, not a whole lot that happens in here, but nonetheless, it looked awesome. Now, props to all our friends who hopped in there on this poll and gave us some votes there. I know it wasn't up very long, but we do appreciate it. So our comments. So, yeah, we already talked about Gregory Wright talking about he had hopped in there and colored this one, colored both of the issues that we had up and wrote the Morbius issue. So we have Christian Tybin. Says, in my opinion, Todd has the best look of Morbius. Morbius does look scary. He looks pretty scary in this. In my opinion.
The 70s V-neck still going on.
Oh, yeah.
Sharp.
Yes, sir. Chris Childs chimed in underneath that and said, I don't know. I love those 2 issues, but he made it seem like Morbius was a giant. Okay. All right. I mean, he was pretty imposing. That's for sure. Christian chimed in and said, I like the Midnight Massacre storyline, Blade killing supernatural creatures and getting their powers, making him stronger the more people he killed. But look-wise, the only time I found Morbius menacing and deadly was during Todd's run in Spider-Man. Yeah, Morbius does look, he is pretty freaking scary. Then Von Grimm types in and says, oh, damn, there's good stuff in both. Yeah, that's about all the comments we had on it. So I don't have anything else much to say here, man. What you got any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to say before we get on out of here?
I think I got it. I liked it. I'm a fan of McFarlane, and especially, I'm not a big Spawn guy, but I liked his Spider-Man stuff, and I've always wanted to go back and read his Amazing Spider-Man run, so eventually I'm going to do that as well. But the adjectiveless Spider-Man is kind of what I've kind of always been partial to. But
okay,
thumbs up from me.
Well, hey, it was part 2 of Sub-City. I had a good time reading it and loved the look of the book. Most likely, one of 2 things is going to happen. The next Unspoken issues is going to be either the final issue of Transformers featuring Dean Compton, who should hopefully join us on that. The most recent poll that I put up was a what if battle. So we got what if number 49, which is what if the Silver Surfer possessed the Infinity Gauntlet, up against what if the Punisher had killed Spider-Man. Now, that's what if number 58. Right now, it is becoming a beatdown, I think, because Dean Compton stepped in and shared.
Yeah.
What if The Punisher Had Killed Spider-Man currently is winning. There's a total of 99 votes, and we got 14 hours left as of this recording. So most likely, one of the next Unspoken issues you're going to be listening to will be a What If issue featuring What If Punisher Had Killed Spider-Man, which I don't know if I've read. I know I own it, but again, it's one of those things. I don't know if I've read that one. And same thing with the What If Silver Surfer Possessed the Infinity Gauntlet. I know that one actually that one jumped up in price there recently because of the Infinity Gauntlet. Yeah. But anyway, all right. Well, hey, listen, folks, thanks again. Once again, go check out the UnspokenDecade.com. I'm sure there's all sorts of great content over there. Many articles regarding 1990s comics. Special shout out to the people that are hosting this here podcast. W2Mnet.com. Radulich and Broadcasting Network has moved all of their content over to W2Mnet.com. Just be on the lookout for another Unspoken issues here. Chris Armstrong, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at BrodyMan34, and occasionally you can even hear me on Jesse's other podcast.
That's right. The Source Material Comics podcast. Most recently, we have joined up with the Superblog team up, and there was all sorts of great podcasts, blogs participating in that event. We had our contribution to Chromium. That's right. The topic or the subject of said Superblog team up this go round was Chromium, which didn't exactly mean we had to pick a comic with a Chromium cover, but I've mentioned it here a couple times tonight. It was basically the focus of excess in comic books. Doesn't have to be the 90s either. It could be the 2000s, but it was focused on, let's just say, marketing strategies of comic books to try and get you to get involved more, such as variant covers, such as Chromium covers, such as polybags, such as trading cards. All those things figured into the topic Chromium. And yeah, like I mentioned before, we covered Torment, the first 5 issues of Spider-Man, of the Adjective Lift Spider-Man, featuring Todd McFarlane, his go at being writer and artist on the Spider-Man comics. So go ahead and check that out. And the Unspoken Issues contribution to the Superblog team up was our discussion on Darkhawk number 25, which it was the origin special. You got to learn all about the origin of Darkhawk. A lot of fun in there. And it was one of the first Darkhawk comics I think I'd ever read. So anyway, you can follow me at Stiznarkey on Twitter, and go give a like, thumbs up, whatever it is there, to the Unspoken Decade Facebook page, and help us out next time a poll comes up. You can have your voice heard. Help us choose which comic we're going to be talking about. With that being said, that is Chris Armstrong over there. I am Jesse Starcher. We will be talking to you again soon. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
After listening to this episode, make sure to check out our spectacular interview with Greg Wright, the colorist of Spider-Man number 14, and also writer and colorist of our other Facebook poll option, Morbius number 12. That interview is on the airwaves right now.